And I'm stacking those layers. In between each layer is a layer of vanilla buttercream. Once my 4 layers are stacked, I add 2 more additional layers, but these are going to be 4 inches in diameter. So they're slightly smaller, and those are going to be the head. Next, I place a bamboo skewer through the center of the cake, and this is something that I'm going to be able to hold on to while I'm carving and icing the cake. All I did was trim a little bit of the chin area, and I rounded out the top of the head. Here I'm adding a crumb coat of icing. I'm just going to make sure that the entire cake is covered in a thin layer of buttercream. This is where that bamboo skewer really comes in handy, because I'm able to hold onto it with my left hand while I ice the cake with my right hand. Next, you want to pop it in the fridge. You're going to take it back out, and we are going to cover it in a layer of modeling chocolate. So I started out with a layer of ivory modeling chocolate to cover the body. I took a blade and trimmed away the excess chocolate, and then you just put some gloves on and you can just blend in those seams really easily. If I didn't have gloves on, I wouldn't be able to smooth out the chocolate as easily. So it's great to have a pair of gloves on hand when you're working with modeling chocolate. Next comes a layer of light green, and that is going to cover the top area of cake. This is going to be his head and his face. I pinch the back, and then I trim away the excess chocolate and blend it in. Then I go around with a blade and I cut off the excess skirt. This looks ridiculous, right? So this is the stuff that I'm going to sculpt all the details out of. So it's very, very simplistic at this point, but it's gonna get better, I promise. I placed a stencil of his face up to the cake, and I traced out where the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are gonna be. Then I go in and I start sculpting all the details with the chocolate that I just covered the cake in. So he's got this little itty bitty nose. And before I get into the details, I want to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. So the eyes are the right size, the nose is the right size, and the mouth is the right size. Then I can go in and really work out the details and all the little creases and wrinkles in his face. I'm adding small amounts of modeling chocolate to bulk up some areas of his face. So I added a little bit for his eyebrow and then his cheeks. Then I go in and I sculpt his little mouth and his tiny chin. He's absolutely adorable. Then I map out the other side of his face. I needed to add a little bit more to his brow, right in the center. I have a bunch of reference photos pulled up on my computer that I'm constantly checking to make sure that my cake Baby Yoda looks just like Baby Yoda. Now that the cake is at room temperature and the chocolate has hardened a bit, I can take out that bamboo skewer and the cake will stand on its own. Then I take that bamboo skewer and I place it through his head from one side of his temple to the other. Now this bamboo skewer is going to hold up his ears. Then I take some modeling chocolate and I cover the skewer and I just shape the ear with chocolate. You gotta be careful when you do this because the chocolate can get pretty soft, so you have to try your best to use only the tools, and if it starts to get too soft, give it a break and go back to it after it gets back to room temperature. Modeling chocolate is amazing, but it does take time to get used to using. It's very temperature sensitive, so if it's too warm, it's really hard to sculpt. But if it's too cold, it's just as difficult because you can't blend seams. So you need to get it at room temperature, and it's perfect. Next, I took some of the chocolate out where the eyes were gonna be and I flattened out that area. You can see here I hand painted some eyes with edible paper. Then I took a half circle of gelatin. I placed that gelatin over top of the edible paper, and that is going to be my eyeball. I opened the eye a little bit with a sculpting tool, and then I placed the gelatin eye into the cake. The eyes are completely edible and it makes a really cool effect. These eyes almost look like they're glass. Then I take a little bit of extra modeling chocolate and I close up the eye by adding an upper eyelid. You gotta be a little careful when you're doing this because it is gelatin, so you don't wanna touch it or poke it. You gotta be gentle. Next, I'm going to do the same thing for his other eye. I'm adding a gelatin to edible paper and placing it into the cake. Look how cute. I always love adding the eyes to things. If you want me to do a full tutorial on how to make these gelatin eyes, let me know in the comments below because I'd love to do one, but I want to know if you want me to do one. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that you know when we post new cake tutorials. Otherwise, you're never going to see the gelatin eye tutorial. Come on. To sculpt his clothes, I just manipulated the chocolate that's already on the cake, so I didn't have to add any for this part. I'm just going in and I'm pushing the chocolate around to create a collar and some folds in the body. So for the sleeves, I did add a little ball of modeling chocolate. Because it's super small, it didn't need to be made out of cake. So I just sculpt that modeling chocolate into the shape of a sleeve, and then I add 2 green hands. I took a hard bristled brush and added some texture to areas of his clothes. To paint, I added a few little pink areas around his eyes and in his ears, but he's mostly that sort of mint green color. I tried to keep this simple because if the dark areas were too dark, it was gonna age him a bit, and he's just a baby. So I kept those colors nice and soft. To paint his clothes, I just added some ivory and a few different shades of brown food color. And that's it. And there you have it, the most adorable baby Yoda cake. I don't want to do it. I don't want to cut this one. It's usually my favorite part is cutting the cake, but for this cake, it's so adorable that I'm having a really hard time. All right, let's cut it. We're gonna do it. Eat you, I will.